Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of Campus to Contracts. Mason, what do you have on store for us today?
Today, we're going to talk about how players get paid from the NIL collectives.
This sounds brilliant. Nobody understands this. We just think everyone gets millions of dollars. How does it start? When does it start?
Different universities have different ways of paying their players. They have different types of contracts, different type of pay schedules. But for the most part, the player is getting a direct deposit straight to their account. That's as simple as I can put it. And the amount, it varies obviously from player to player, but usually it starts the first day of class and then you get a deposit once a month for the remainder of your career as long as you're at university.
12 months a year?
12 months a year, baby.
That's fantastic. So it's not like the NFL where they stop paying you after the season's done. It's the full year, monthly, one check a month?
Yes. So, in NFL payment, they give you one check a week for 36 weeks out of the year. In college, you get, for most schools, you get a direct deposit once a month, but for all 12 months.
Is there any stipulations with that?
Well, so if you're playing well, the payment goes up. If you're not playing so well, the payment goes down. So, I mean, there's usually a minimum. I have yet to hear of a maximum. There is no salary cap. Let's just get that out of the way. So you could get paid as much as you can handle.
So for those that don't understand the salary cap, a team would have a certain amount of money that they're allowed or not allowed to spend. In college, there is none of that. So a team can spend however much money as they want on all of their players to make the perfect team, however that looks like.
Yes, that's exactly how that goes.
So when you say there's no maximum that you've experienced, it's because nobody knows what that looks like.
Nobody knows what that looks like. There are markets, like there are, you'll hear quarterbacks that are making $1 million plus. Some offensive tackles making multiple millions plus. The best players on the teams making around $1 million or high 500K, 600K, 700K. So there's guys that are making six figures, deep in the six figures, and some 7-figure guys.
But when you divide that by 12, your monthly check is a 6-figure check.
For some guys.
That is absolutely wild.
Yes.
That is a lot of money for a very young individual. So when you make it to the league, everyone knows that some of these players go bankrupt after they get a lot of money because they're young. Is there any education for these kids about like, hey, this is amazing. This is a great opportunity. Here's what you can do. Here's what you shouldn't do. What do you tell your players? What are those conversations like?
Yes, I try to, again, you also got to think about this. I'm talking to 17-year-olds and 18-year-olds and 16-year-olds about financial decisions. That's a very hard conversation to have with kids that age, because the first thing they already understand, I'm not paying for college. My parents aren't paying for college, so I'm already winning. I'm on scholarship. This extra money that I'm getting is just extra. I'm allowed to spend it all if I really want to. What I try to tell my clients is that, hey, let's look into what can be done here. Let's save on the front end, so at the back end we have something to hold on to build with, to live off of, because you don't need all that money. A lot of these kids are going to schools where they're not in expensive cities, right? They're not going to New York or Los Angeles or San Francisco or Boston or Miami. Most of them aren't going to places like that. So to have 6 to 10K deposited into your bank account every single month, you don't need all that money. You don't need to spend it all. You can save it, you can invest it, you can put it away, and you can do positive things with it in the future. Let your money grow and put you in a very positive situation, even going into the NFL. Because once you get into the NFL, you should not be using any of your NIL money.
Yeah, I think that's tough. The compounding interest conversation is terrible for everybody. I've seen regular people struggle with compounding interest, and I can't even imagine what that would do if you actually use that to your benefit, getting that money. It would be
Yeah.
pretty wild, but I could easily see a 17, 16-year-old me getting rid of a lot of that money very quickly.
Yeah.
And you ask how could you spend that money on very silly ways and very silly ideas, buying meals for people you don't need to buy meals for, taking care of people you don't need to take care of. Um, because when you're in that kind of young mentality, you're like, oh, I'm gonna share the wealth, if you will.
Yes. Yes. There's some players that are like that, and they have good hearts and good intentions, but at the end of the day, this is a rare opportunity because we don't even know if this will last. We don't know what type of, laws and regulations will put into place to where it might, it's not going to stop NIL, but it might, halt its progression, or it might put a salary cap on it. So when you have players that are making substantial amounts of money as young men, you need to help them, and you need to help them make smart financial decisions.
So I look at it two different ways. The first way is this is a way for the older generation to really spread the wealth to the younger generation if they wanted to, and provide for their university a championship. That's one way you could look at this money. The other way that you could see these opportunities for these kids is that if the university works with our government, is there a possibility that you could see some caps or limits? Or do you just think that there's just too many areas to get these players paid at this point?
Well, for the most part, we're only discussing those on-campus NIL deals. We're not even discussing the private ones. And when you bring in the fact that they could be getting paid from private entities outside as marketing deals, then there's no regulation that the government's going to be able to have on that.
Because they're
And
adults.
plus, exactly. And plus, once those, if there is some sort of, you know, um, salary cap placed on these universities are going to be smart enough to understand that, all right, let's see who we can link up with on that in the private sector and see how we can continue this onslaught of garnishing wages to get players to come to this university and play some football.
Yeah, I didn't even think on the private side. So we understand the university, how the NIL deal will work with the university. On a private marketing deal, is it similar, once a month payment, or can that be negotiated any which way? Can
Any
change.
any They both can be negotiated any which way. Like the private deals are just your standard marketing deals, like every single agent for any sort of type of industry, right? Like, hey, he's in a commercial with Sprite. Sprite probably paid him a lump sum. Boom, just paid him that sum of money to do that commercial, or sponsor him every year. 250,000 every year goes into him as long as he's a Sprite athlete, something like that, right? So it's just any sort of, but those deals last usually through college. They don't end at college. They end whenever they want to end. The NIL deals from the on-campus collectives end when that player is done at that university.
But the biggest thing about this difference, if you will, is we went from players getting just scholarships to players now getting payment to play the sport as adults, but now they have marketing deals, and the marketing deals can be infinite. That you don't need to stop at one. You can have 15, you can have 5, you can have 3, depending on what your personality is, and also how well you play. I would imagine that would be a big asset there. So these kids now have opportunities in front of them that were unheard of when you went to college, and that's how fast this whole thing's moved.
Yes, that's exactly right. It's completely different, completely took a whole 180. It's upside down. And yeah, these players are able to get paid from multiple different avenues, from different companies and people and entities. And a lot of times, especially in the private sector, those deals could be made to last their entire football career.
Wow, it's just it's changed so much. What do you say to the fan, the casual fan who feels like the NIL is ruining the sport, or paying these players has really changed the game, and they're not happy about it? Because I run into a lot of people who are unhappy that these players are getting paid. I've made the arguments that I've heard from you, but what do you say to these fans, if you will?
I would say to the fans that NIL has not ruined the game. It has changed it. In my opinion, it's made it more exciting. You're going to see different teams be able to compete with universities they probably once couldn't compete with. You're going to see different universities come up with more strategic ways of funding their programs and allowing those universities to have better athletes and be able to compete at a higher level. You're going to see some smaller schools come to the top. You're going to see some of the top schools go back to the bottom. So it's going to be a nice, refreshing change in college football. The same juggernauts aren't going to be the same juggernauts that we've had for the last 20 years. A lot of things are going to change. You're going to slowly but surely see new universities that have been able to market well, that have been able to get the community on board, that have been able to collect funds for their NIL funding and collectives and paying these players and better players and getting better results. So you're going to see schools that you may not have been used to winning national championships or going to the college football playoffs in past years. You're going to see new schools now. You're going to see some small schools start to get better. You might start seeing some really big schools start to get worse.
And in the grand scheme, now that you have a 12-team playoff, you got a more variety, so more kids, more people are excited about that opportunity as well. So I certainly don't disagree with you. I can just this college season so far to date has been fantastic.
Yeah,
for the fan to watch and to see all of these exciting games. I mean, you have great games every week, great upsets every week, and to your point, when you're paying all of these players, to perform, you can get upset and you can get embarrassed. And if you're not bringing it every single week, and that's why you see players getting frustrated because it hurts. It may hurt their check. Things that we never could say back in the day. So
yeah.
How players get paid today has certainly changed the marketplace, and change is inevitable. And as a fan, I think the experience has been pretty fun so far to experience, to watch.
Yes, I agree. And I can't wait for the next couple of years of college football. We're going to see even more change.
And it will be exciting to cover, exciting to talk to you about. And thank you again for kind of going over how players get paid. I can't even imagine being 18, 17, getting a check once a month while all my school is covered. That's the other part people don't realize. You don't have any bills from school, and you get a check on top of it, which is just wild. So I am your host, Brendan. That is Mason, our agent, and this is Campus to Contracts. Don't forget to like and subscribe as we give you more and more information about how it looks in the new environment of college football.